Hey, what's up, guys? Hopefully a brief-ish video. I wanted to go over one of the runes in the game that I see a lot of people playing incorrectly. So if you're new to the game, or even if you've been playing the game for, a few months like I have, game's only been out for a few months at this point, not even released at this point, actually. But I wanted to go over the card Resting on Your Laurels, because a lot of people aren't using this card correctly, or you could say they're using it illegally in the way that they're playing it. So, Resting on Your Laurels, it's a one cost invoke rune for any spirit. And if your opponent has more enchanting spirits than you do, you can target and destroy that opponent's Elestral with the least number of enchanting spirits. If it's a tie, your opponent can choose the target. Just bear in mind this card's only in the Wind Starter deck. So if you need this card, pick up the Wind Starter deck. So what do I mean when people are playing this card illegally or wrong? So there's a rule that came about 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, so it's not super new, but in terms of the Celestial news cycle, being that the game's only been announced for a few months at this point, 2 weeks is quite a long time. When a rune is being cast, it's on board and enchanted for the time that it takes to resolve the effect. So, what a lot of people do with this ability, and this is how the card used to work before that rule change, is if my opponent goes first, they play one Elestral and nothing else, pass turn, we would just play Resting on Your Laurels and destroy the Elestral because they have one spirit on board under their Elestral, and we have nothing except we're casting Resting on Your Laurels. But now that runes are considered enchanted until they are resolved on the board, if your opponent has one spirit on board and you play Resting on Your Laurels with an empty board, Resting on Your Laurels counts as one enchanting spirit for its ability, and it's not activatable or castable because your opponent has one spirit and you would have one spirit when you're casting Resting on Your Laurels. It's a little bit of a weird rule, but it makes sense because our runes are they're runes. A rune's an object, right? So the object, although this object is kind of using up its power and going to the underworld right away, it does exist on board and enchanted for a brief period of time. So thematically that fits. Mechanically it's a little bit weird because a lot of people are equating their invoke runes to like instants in Magic or spell cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, like cards that they go away and they're not on board, so they're not enchanting, right? But in Elestrals they are runes. They're an object on the board for however brief a period until they get used up and get sent to the underworld after the fact. So you have to basically, if you want to use laurels, you need to be at a deficit of board presence of two spirits or more. So they have to play on their turn. If they go first, they'll have to play Island of Aeolia and say Sorlet. So now they have two on board. You can play Resting on Laurels then. If they Tadpuff right into a Krakatuga on turn one, well, you can Resting on Laurels now. That is a big nerf for Resting on Your Laurels, but being able to destroy an Celestial for one cost is still a very good ability. And a card like this will be very good against, even against like a Swarm deck, where you may not be able to choose the target because they have a bunch of one drops in play. It's still a one cost to get rid of a threat, and your opponent will still lose a card, then maybe you answer their other threat. If they're playing Viserys and they have two Viserys in play, well, this will get rid of probably the defense position of Viserys and might leave the other Viserys open to be dealt with. So the card's still very good, and it's even better when your opponent's like, going into big things quickly. They're going into, their Vault Tempest but don't have Zeus in play. They're going into them Pantera. You just blow up the Pantera and make them split up and spend even more runes. Maybe you're playing this in a fire deck and they go Pantera right away. And you just go, okay, Resting on Your Laurels, and now burn you for the rest of your damage with some eruptions. So it has a place. It's basically you're paying one less for a restriction than, say, Earthquake, but you don't need Earth Spirits for this card, so you don't need to quote unquote splash it. You can put it in a sideboard if, go big tall strategy is a thing or becomes meta. If someone says, if, playing Majesty on turn one becomes super consistent, everyone's doing it with their Tadpuff combos, well, that stops it. So the card's still very good, but just be aware that while it's being cast, it is considered an enchanted card and enchanting spirits in play until it's resolved. And that's fine. I hope you guys learned something from the video. I didn't want to make this too long. I just want to go over why people are playing this card wrong, but it's still good for what it does. And that's all. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.